It feels like we might be. So.
All right, well, we're going to get started. And I want to welcome everybody to the monthly Oracle Temple Spirituality Salon. This is our gathering that we do with our community, which is called the Valley of Light. And we're located in Independence, Virginia. And we're really happy that you're joining us this evening, both those who are here with us on Zoom and those who may be watching via the live stream. We're going to start with our mantra. And if you have the program, you can say it along with me. Source of all being, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from the fear of death to the knowledge of immortality. Allow us to reunite with you and come to know your mysteries. And now I'm going to pass it over to Michael Malley, who is going to facilitate this evening. And this has been Laura George signing out.
Thank you, Laura. And yeah, my name is Michael, and I'm a non-resident member of the Valley of Light community. And I am just passionate about the mission that Laura's has started there and the community that's beginning to grow. And I'm also a father. So the topic today is very important to me, education and lessons in life learning, because I really want to have an active role in the education of my child. And I really want him to blossom. And I know that education is really important in helping that happen. So I had the pleasure of meeting Michael from Polestar Gardens a few, that was a couple months ago, I think, at a FIC meeting. And in those meetings, they set up a format that's breakout rooms, and you can pick topics. And one of the topics I threw out there was education and community. And Michael shared some really beautiful things about his experience and the educational experience that he had been able to create for his daughter and the other children in the community. And just everything that he said just rang so true with me. And I wanted to learn more about it. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity, inviting him to come share. So Polestar Gardens was in Hawaii, and now Michael's working on a new project in Colorado, and I'm sure he's going to share a little bit about that. Kshama, our other guest tonight, is kind of a bonus, an unexpected surprise bonus. But in the little bit that was shared in her bio, it was very clear that she's also extremely passionate about education. She's an Education for Life specialist. She's a student of the Living Wisdom School and the Education for Life International School. So I'm sure she's going to have some very valuable things to share with us. And she's also a communitarian. So I'm going to pass it off to our speakers and hear what they have to share with us tonight.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, and great to be with all of you here this evening. And I had to invite Kshama because, well, she grew up in an intentional community and was part of the educational movements that we were all involved in. And then she went on to become a teacher and is now the principal of the high school of our Palo Alto educational facility. And so she has a whole different, perspective to bring in it. So I'll try not to talk too long so we can make sure we leave plenty of time for her to share. But I'll back up just a little bit and say that some of you have probably heard of our teacher, who is sort of the inspiration behind a lot of what we do in education and community and spirituality. Paramahansa Yogananda wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. And when he first started his public outreach to the world, he was in his 20s, and he started a school, and he called it the How to Live School. It's a very wonderful way to pick up the idea of education. How do we live, and it addresses all the different aspects of who we are, not just the mental or the physical, the combination of every aspect of our being, physical, mental, and spiritual. So we took a lot of inspiration from his teachings and writings on that topic. And the other thing, interestingly enough, is that he was very passionate about the future of intentional communities. And he spoke passionately about the need for them in the future, and he called them the solution for our future. And I don't know what it's like in your world, but in my world, I'm seeing the receptivity to that has increased dramatically over the last several years, in part due to all the difficulties we're having and the sort of raising awareness of how much we need each other, how much we need to learn the lessons of getting along with each other, learning how to grow together. So I started my own journey in community when I was 19. I moved to an intentional community in Northern California, and Shama still lives in the same community, Ananda Village. And it's about 1,000 acres and 150 houses and a school and a farm, and it's just a happening spiritual community. And I raised 2 kids there. And this is what really lit my fire about the importance of community, because my children had many friends of all ages, close friends. They had many adults who were present for their development, who celebrated their evolution. And it was for a parent just a dream, because especially as you get into your children get older, you're no longer the main thing in their life. And so the community they have around them will really determine, to a great extent, the trajectory of the rest of their lives. So I was so grateful that they had many friends who were principled and deep, and they witnessed good friendship, deep friendships among people, and the values of service, and in our path, meditation, and all these things. And so I lived there for about 20 years, actually closer to 24 years, and we raised our kids there. And then we decided we wanted, my wife and I, to start our own community, and I'll tell you a quick history of it. So we decided we especially wanted to focus on a householder community of people who were had kids, and that was sort of a big part of our focus. And we ended up on the big island of Hawaii. We were there for 15 years, and then the lava came. So Kilauea volcano, you probably heard of it. We had our 15 minutes of fame there on the national news. And it came right in our backyard, literally. It flowed right down our northern border. It burned our 6,000 square foot community house and our meditation temple to the ground. And we all got evacuated, and we were scattered. It was very dramatic and of course traumatic too. We had a great run there. We had an organic farm. We had a yoga retreat. We had many youth programs. Kishama came a couple of times. And brought high school kids. We had lots of wonderful events there, but when it was taken away, we had to stop looking down and say, oh, okay, well, what's next? And we did have lava insurance, which I would highly recommend if you ever buy property on the Big Island. And so we sort of traveled for about a year, just looking for what kind of a place would really work for our next campus. And what we really wanted to do was to make these principles and this lifestyle more accessible to more people. The Big Island is so remote. So anyway, I won't go into that too much more, but we ended up in Fort Collins. We have purchased 10 acres within the city limits. And we're developing a model of community. We're in escrow on the adjoining 10 acres. So we're in this process of fundraising. And our model of community is a walkable community where there's a large garden they call it an agrihood, so you're growing food. We have it's kind of, as I told a reporter, which made her chuckle, who did a little article on it in the local paper, it's sort of a co-housing meets the new urbanism meets spiritual community is kind of our vision in a nutshell. So we're providing for elder living units. We're provided for assisted living. It's 150 units, so it's very ambitious, but we're well down the road at this point, and we've got lots of investors, and so that's sort of our current take on what we're doing with community. But to get back to the essential idea of Polestar and how we created it is the power of community in education. That when you are surrounded by people who are conscious, endeavoring to live spiritually, awake for the process that you're going through and they're going through, and present for all those things, I mean, that is, to me, the magic of community. It's such a powerful influence. And honestly, I think a very natural thing for us to have a tribe, to have people we are close to, who know us, who we can be ourselves with, who we can strive to be our best selves with. And we've been in community so long, we don't have stars in our eyes about it. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, everything you see in the world is present in a community. But what makes the difference is that intention to use the experiences of life for everyone's evolution, for everyone's upliftment. And so I just really wanted my kids to have that. And I really want all kids to have that. And I think it is all of our jobs that we are present for the kids in our lives, that we are awake to how they're growing, and we participate consciously. And in our communities, there have been many people like that. And that has just been an incredible gift and a comfort to a parent. You want your child to be known, to be loved, to be nurtured. It's too big a job. It takes a village, as they always say. So it's funny, we ended up in that Zoom call together on education and community. The byline for Polestar is spirit, community, and lifelong learning. That's our focus. And so we try to bring that together in one campus where we can live and fulfill all the functions of our lives. And so anyway, that's probably plenty from me. And so now you get to see sort of Kishama's perspective, who grew up in a community and went on to be a very dynamic teacher in high school teacher. So go ahead, Kishama.
Thank you, Michael. Thinking about the impact of the mentors and guides and community members in our lives, I would just share with everyone, Michael and the spaces and community that he created really have been a touch point and a Polestar and a guide in finding my way through life also. So my family, close friends with Michael and family, has been a part of Ananda, which is an intentional community started in California about 50 years ago, inspired by the teachings and philosophy of Paramahansa Yogananda. And like Michael said, it's full community living, houses, businesses, schools, gardens, all of it. There are also satellite communities in various parts, especially on the West Coast of the US. I live in an urban community in Mountain View, which is right next to Palo Alto, just south of San Francisco. And, growing up, I from a very, very, very early age, was surrounded by the support of community members who came into our school system and taught and shared their specialties, and everything from really guiding us in connection with the land and spiritual essence, and also helping develop our passions and our interests, and teaching us what it means to be contributing, serviceful members of not only our local community, but our global family. In middle school, part of our education was that we spent an entire year earning funds in order to go on a service trip to Mexico. And then in that location, we lived on site in an orphanage with the young people there and served with them, learned with them, just really integrated ourselves into their life experience. And you know, those kinds of immersive service-filled experiences really leave an imprint. And a lot of that sort of led me in a winding way back to this as an adult. In my late teens and early 20s, I was able to participate with some of Michael's programs where, again, it was very service oriented, a lot of play, but also teaching deep transformative tools of meditation and how to work with energy and magnetism. And so the extended network of community is, I think, incredibly vital. And I've spent about 10 years working in elementary school, teaching in the Living Wisdom School in Palo Alto. It's based on a philosophy called Education for Life, which is inspired by Paramahansa Yogananda and then was articulated by his student, Swami Kriyananda. But it's really a process of education that's rooted in intuition and the development of consciousness. And so all of our students, we study deeply all of the if you will, core competencies or abilities that we need to move through the world. But there's an approach that is very much student-centered. And as teachers, we're trained to use not only our intellectual faculties, but our intuitive perception to understand where the growth points are for each child, whether we're working with someone who's in their 6th year of life or 16th year of life. What is their next step, not only in their abilities to think logically and do mathematics, but how to work through conflict. What is their next step of maturity? What are passions or skill sets or natural abilities that they're already showing are budding, but how do we help those expand and grow? So my work now, I spent, like I said, about a decade working with young children, and I'm now working as administrator and mentor in a micro high school program. And we've intentionally created an extension to our TK through 8th grade that is a small community-based high school program, really as an antidote to a lot of the difficulties that we see in larger educational systems, both in the US and around the world. In Palo Alto here, a number of years ago, we had a string of suicides in the high school years. And that was a huge prompting to make sure that we were expanding to serve this age range. And our work, our students are tied closely with mentors. They work with me and with others in the community to help guide them in their inner growth and their skill sets. There's a focus again on service. We teach meditation and centering practices as part of our core curriculum. What else can I share with you? There's really a focus on inviting people to be who they are. So much in education, I think, or society, young people start to try and morph into an idea of what they think they should be. And whether that's parental pressures or peer pressures, their authentic selves get covered up. And I watch students transfer into our programs, again, whether it's early in their educational cycle or years down the road. And as they settle into a space where they're safe and seen and supported, you just watch, like peeling the layers of an onion, just layer after layer of protection start to fall away. And pretty soon you see these incredible young people with wisdom and creativity and initiative and an awareness of each other and a real heart quality of taking care of one another. So it's really an honor to be a part of an educational system like this and to have connection points with other networks of schools that are doing similar work and helping to change society through the transformation of consciousness. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Kishama.
That was really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, and what a unique experience you both have being involved with that. It's yeah, it strikes me as being extremely different from my own experience with school and education. So it's beautiful to see that work is being done, and it's inspiring. And one of our visions for the Valley of Light is to grow the community in such a way that there would be young people and that we could support a school coming together. So I'm interested to learn more about Paramahamsa Yogananda's teachings and education style. My aunt was a nun in the 80s, I believe, in the Self-Realization Fellowship. So yeah.
Interesting.
And
Wow.
as you can hear, I have a young person here with me, my 3-year-old. And yeah, one of the things that really resonated that you shared, Kshama, was this experience that you had of traveling and seeing another culture and really integrating into that culture and having that deep educational experience. And just a few times that we've traveled with my son, I've noticed just this amazing development that happens in him when we travel and we see a new place and we see new faces. So yeah, that really resonated with me. It's like this little boost when we come back from the trip, like he's saying new things, he has new interests. So yeah, I can see that having a variety of experience is also really important in developing as a person. And I also wanted to open it up if anyone else wanted to ask a question or make a comment. This is kind of our open, the salon is open and discussion is welcome.
I have a question. I just missed a lot of what was just talked about because I was with him, so maybe it was already answered or not. But just as far as as doing things as we are right now, is like we're planning on homeschooling our child. This is more of a selfish question, I guess, but like what does that step look like? What is that initiative to, do something ourselves or to start a movement where we are with the Valley of Light? What does it look like to do that with education? What do you think?
Michael, do you want to speak to that first?
Oh, if you have something to say, go ahead. You can go first.
I haven't really helped launch something from the ground up, although I have many people I could connect you with who have phenomenal experience with especially starting educational programs. But I think what I would recommend really is finding or connecting with fellow community members and parents who share your values and who are interested in creating along with you. And then, really just working together in partnership. If you're already moving in the direction of homeschooling, the doors will open and the connection points will be there. And then it's probably a matter of just allowing more and more collaborative experiences to unfold.
No, I think that's a good answer. Find those people who, I mean, most big school things have been started by a couple of people who just had the, initiative and the idea and had kids and they wanted something more. And so, yeah, but get whoever's in your network that has energy for kids. And I really, that's why I think the community is so important, because to have that culture that it's in everybody's minds that the kids in your life are your kids. It's not, it is, they're part of your dharma, your responsibility, your privilege to be in their lives. And so I think you find a few people and of course the younger kids really need the elder kids. In our village model, we're doing the elder housing as one of those intergenerational wellness centers, what we're calling it. And so you have a preschool and then you have elder housing in the same facility. And they operate separately, but you can real easily mix them. And there's about 100 of those kinds of facilities in the States right now. And so we've been dreaming that up and drawing it up on the plan. So, but yeah, somebody was going to go. I think I interrupted. Who had oh yes, Aaron, go ahead. Oh wait, you're not Aaron. You're muted.
Mimi, you're on mute.
Okay. I was curious about, as a teacher myself for 30 years, how a typical elementary school day would actually look as it played out compared to the methods and strategies and teaching styles that you all are employing.
Mm-hmm. So the principles of our education for life approach are really looking at integrating and developing the child in all facets of life. So their intellect, their emotional intelligence, their dynamic willpower, their spirit and soul nature. Often our work, we really try to bring in as much experiential learning as possible, and bringing head and heart and dynamic willpower into a child's experience. There are so many really wonderful educational programs and new understandings coming to light that I see integrated into a lot of schools now. And so it's gone away from rote learning to integrated experiential learning, even when we're talking about some of the core academic subjects. But we learn through a lot of doing, whether it's on campus or off campus, a lot of field trips, even for young students. Meditation and centering practices, like I said, are integrated into the students' learning daily, singing together, even approaching things like writing, for example, really working with a workshop style model of writing where students are learning to generate their own ideas and their thoughts and to draw on their imagination and their life experience to express rather than to imitate or just learn, set procedures. In the high school years, it can be a lot of on-site immersive learning. So students who are interested in neuroscience or painting or poetry, being able to partner with someone who has those expertise and learn side by side with them, rather than having to wait until they're in their third year of university studies to actually, step into the hospital or whatever it might be. But Michael touched on this also, which is that when we're bringing in teachers and choosing who the mentors will be for our children, not only looking at their academic expertise, but really paying attention to the quality of their character and the consciousness that they bring. There are so many incredible educators in every different avenue of teaching, but who we are is as important or more important than necessarily just the skill sets that we can teach. And I think our young people really learn by osmosis from being around conscious adults.
Very good. I was going to add, well, just a couple of things. First of all, and I did teach actually classroom taught for 1 year. I always say it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And so I was, the last day of my career was the happiest day of my life. That's not to say I didn't have a great time. I had a wonderful time and I loved those kids and we had a blast together. But the first thing is that the classes are smaller. I have to say, I mentioned this to you, Michael, in our last thing, 35 students with one person in a room. I mean, what is that? That is nothing to do with life as far as I'm concerned.
Football team must have a tough time.
But so I think the advantages for the opportunities for growth in smaller numbers, and I would notice even with just 10, 12 kids, if I had, and I would recruit people, I got the community involved in my classroom, if I had even one other adult, the amount of juice we could transmit, prana, energy, life force to what we were doing quadrupled at least, because you can model, you can connect, you can demonstrate. And so it's just, I think the model of education that is, and it is changing, is not experiential enough, and just so I'm not a big classroom kind of a guy. I didn't like school growing up. That's part of why I brought Kashama, because I wanted a different perspective, on this. But every day, whatever is in front of you is there to teach you. We have to learn how to live creatively all the time, and so just to have your young people involved in that and participating in that is a real education. So I think that's important. And thought I'd share just a brief story too. When been a lifelong builder, so I'm a carpenter and by now a contractor, and built hundreds of houses, and so when I started they say if you're good with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, so when I started teaching, they needed an outdoor classroom. So we went down out to a project that was happening in the community where they had to drop a couple of trees. They were cedar trees. And so the kids came along and watched them get dropped. And then we brought a lumber mill, one of those portable lumber mills, to the site. And they milled them up right there. And then the kids helped load them onto the truck. And then we brought them over to the shop, and the kids helped unload them and run them through the planer. And then we take all that lumber, and then over the next month, I got a bunch of screw guns so they could screw it all together. We built this gorgeous outdoor classroom that we used for the rest of the year. And and many other things like that. Just, I think, experiences where you're being creative, you're solving problems, life is one thing after another to apply yourself to and creatively move through. And so anyway, it is, I think our traditional methods leave a lot lacking, when it's one building where everybody goes. It's like, it's just, there's all of life out the door, things to build and things to create, and nature. So those are my kind of biases on education, that it just needs to be more dynamic, more fun. And yeah, any other thoughts or questions on any of that?
Well, what really resonated with me from what you shared is the importance of mentors in that, and that seems to be part of what's lacking in the public education system. Is teachers are overworked. So even though they want to be present with the kids and they want to be mentors, that's really hard with the situation that they're in. They're really just kind of doing the best with what they're given. So, and it's hearing Michael share his experience, and that was one of the most difficult things that he did. It is always amazing to me to see people so passionate about teaching, because I know it's not easy. So I'm wondering, this is a question for Shama and also Mimi, because Mimi was an educator. What really drives you to do this work?
To see our students change and to watch their growth over time is, I think, the most fulfilling, rewarding, inspiring, motivating experience that I can have, to watch them overcome challenges, to discover more and more deeply who they are and what enlivens them and what they're here to do. It's the honor of a lifetime, and to know that it's, they're drops in the ocean, but those drops have ripples, and they'll go off and do something with their lives also and pay it forward. It's an honor, and yeah, gets me up in the morning.
Yeah.
You agree with that, Mimi?
Yeah, I definitely do. I ended my 30 years, the last 14 years were with self-contained, very severely disabled youngsters and toddlers. And I can definitely say that every day was different. It was just so exciting to watch them change and grow. I mean, it was just really thrilling. And at that age, the parents were so grateful for anything that we did. I had an assistant that it really made it fun. And that reminds me, I'll be brief, when I first started teaching, my first year or two was in an elementary school as a speech pathologist. And there was a kindergarten teacher there who was so popular. She was amazing. I mean, the parent support in the community was fantastic. She was the teacher that every parent fought for to have their child enrolled in her class. And I quickly found out why. And you would not see it today in our schools. She taught the entire kindergarten year based on the kids putting together a circus. She taught every element of school, math, science, reading, music, all of it, through the children working for an entire year, building this circus, which they then put on for the parents at the end of the year. They made their costumes, they learned how to sew. I mean, it was just incredible. You can't do that today. You could not, even as a later elementary school teacher, you can't backtrack. There's no time to backtrack, to improvise, really, there isn't. You just don't have the time. And I mean, it used to be you could at least have your English language arts kinds of projects, so a place where you could have some choice. You could, choose a certain poem, choose a play for the kids to put on, say as 3rd or 5th graders. You can't even do that today. Everything is so scripted.
Wow.
And so timed that just listening to you was wonderful. I loved it. Thank you. That's the way it should be.
That was a thrilling example of really an integrated experiential curriculum. I have it's so clear why families and students and everyone loved being with her.
Yeah.
I think there are advantages and disadvantages to working within the public sector, and even charter schools. There are a lot of benefits and advantages to working in a structure and system like that, not the least of which is that it can be offered free of charge to families. But there is something to be said for working in the private sector, because there is so much freedom to still create and do as you're describing. We do a smaller version of that, but it runs across our grades of a 6-week immersive theater production, and it's always based on the life of an inspiring figure, whether it's a saint or a social activist. And the students from transitional kindergarten through 8th grade, and we haven't integrated this into our high school yet, but it's in the works. They study the language, the culture, the historical context, the life of that inspiring individual, and really just try to bring it into a complete package in terms of their learning. And then it culminates in a collaborative theater production with the 4-year-olds working with the 13, 14-year-olds. And it is incredible, the transformation and change. And then you see the little ones afterwards, especially role playing and telling the story of that individual again. It's just remarkable.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, wow.
Well.
You mentioned that one of the advantages of a charter school or a public school is the fact that you can offer it to virtually anybody for, I guess, financial reasons. How do you guys finance your school? Do the students pay? Is it set up as a charity? How does it work?
Yeah, we are privately funded, which means that it is tuition based. Our tuition does not meet the cost of running the school, and all of our teaching staff, really it's a labor of love. So their salaries are far below what public school teachers would be earning. We do have a fundraising campaign, and there are some people who make generous contributions or offer scholarships. And we have a commitment that anyone who aligns with our philosophy and is deeply committed to their child being part of the school will find a way to make it work. So we have in our high school program, I don't know the numbers for our lower school, but about 40% of our students are on some form of tuition reduction, whether it's 100% or 10% or some range within. But it's sometimes it's on a wing and a prayer, and hopefully some solid planning as well. But there is a financial reality to it that's unescapable as far as we've found so far.
I was interested in what you said about blending the elders with the youngest in the community. I just finished reading a book where it was the guy, Rob Hopkins, who started the Transition Town movement in England. And he was talking about that model, and it just makes so much sense to me. So have you seen, did you say you were building one and you haven't finished yet? And if you haven't finished yet, I was just curious if you visited one of those centers, because it just makes sense to me to do like daycare with assisted living, have the school nearby, because all the studies show that, I mean, it brings older people back to life in terms of feeling needed and you know, wanting to give to the next generation or even 2 generations down. I mean, it just seems so logical to me.
It so is, and you can Google it and watch some very cute videos of people who are doing it. But at the moment, it's you know, we are doing site planning and the entitlement process with the city, and it's on our plan, and we're doing the floor plans and the elevations right now, and so we got a group of people who are guiding us, and some of them are involved in them already. So I think it is just, it's so intuitive that you would combine those. It's just kind of obvious, really. And so, no, I couldn't agree more.
How far
Yeah.
along are you with the plans? And can you, I'm just curious if you can share them if they're not, you know, architecturally copyrighted.
No, they're certainly not, and they're mostly schematic right now because we're in the middle of the entitlement process. So we're still probably got about a year to go of entitlement, and so it's engineering studies and yeah, I'm happy to share. I'm trying to think of.
How big will it be? How many students and how many elders? I'm just curious the size of it.
Yeah, we're designing it. Well, first of all, we've committed to making all our ground floor housing in the entire community age and place friendly. So we're going to design everything so that, you know, if you can stay there a long time, and we've personally seen this, that if you're surrounded by friends and family, you can stay independent a whole lot longer than if you're just out somewhere, you know, and
Yeah.
so in a neighborhood, we call it an intentional neighborhood, in a walkable neighborhood, you've got, you know, a lot of access to a lot of people who care about you, and it just, I think that's the part of the culture you have to help along. Is just when did we get the idea that was just okay to ship our elders somewhere? You know, it just it doesn't make any sense. They're just you know, they have to be integrated into our lives. And so anyway, I'll show you. I don't know if you can see. I'll see if I can show you this. I'd have to hunt this down on the computer, which would
They're
probably
in
be better.
Colorado. Diane was asking where you guys are. They're in Colorado.
Yes. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. So are
Okay,
you
it's a
talking
big
like,
garden in the middle.
uh-huh.
There's a meditation temple and lots of housing. And you get a little idea of it. The Elder Center is on the far left, unless the screen flips it. And so we're designing it for, I think it's designed for up to 40 preschool, but it's not really our vision to have that many. But we thought, you know, who knows, you better design it so you got capacity. And then the elder living is 6 assisted living downstairs and 4 senior living, independent living upstairs. So you sort of combine that all together, and you know, like in these other units, let's see if I can show you here. Boy, this is hard. Oh yeah, I'm backwards. Over here, these are like apartments and ground floor apartments. We're trying to get some affordable housing going, so we're doing micro apartments. And so if you reach the point where you really need 24-hour care, you don't have to leave your community. You know, you can just move across the green. You have your same relationships, your same, you know, and very possibly we've been reading up. There's all kinds of models people are doing for elder care now that are more cooperative and community based, and so we're working on that. You know, something we meet about regularly, and trying to get the vision just really attuned to what is best.
Are there easy grants? I'm sure loans, but what about grants for building things like that?
There are, and we are a 501c3, so we are definitely working on those angles.
Yeah, I heard, I was participating in an FIC conference before COVID. I think it was at Twin Oaks, and one of them who was leading a seminar said that the assisted living cottage industry was the fastest growing for intentional communities, because they discovered they started building them for their own members who were aging out, and they didn't want them to leave, and then they had excess capacity, and they discovered it was a great moneymaker to also allow others, you know, to rent space and to come into the community. And is that true? Am I remembering right that that's like one of the biggest money makers now for intentional community?
Diane, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Yeah, I am so feeling so much joy just listening to all of that's being shared. I have been interested in intentional community for quite some time, like feeling that it was the natural flow of what needs to be. But for the past 17 months, my 101-year-old mother has been living with me. And so everything that you're talking about, just the naturalness of having an intergenerational community, there's so many reasons why it's the way it needs to be. It's a natural rhythm that needs to be followed. And I'm just really joyful hearing everything that you're sharing about the education, and how it's so interesting. Like my situation really needs to change, because one of the things that I realize is that giving care to older people is so important, and it needs to be shared. It's really, it's too much to do with the energy and the grace that you want to have. It's not meant to be done like 24/7. So it's such a natural thing to be part of community. And just I think that having children around older people, or all ages, more intermingled, that's where the real health is. So I definitely am looking actually actively to get, I wish I could find something now for me and my family to happen. And I'm trusting that is in process, actually.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up about the multi-age, because a point I forgot to make, and Michael, we talked about it at that meeting, that the advantage of the multi-ages is you're not just a student, you're also a teacher, and that's a really, so when you have people who are younger than you that you're responsible for, and then people that you are, it really helps the maturation process, I think, and rounds out your understanding of human relations. And so I think it's a very, very healthy part of being in community. Thanks for bringing that out.
Yeah, just to be able to live locally, I think, is a really important thing for healing right now, that it may looks like it's going to become more essential. But even if it weren't essential, it's just healthy.
Man.
Yeah. Is Polestar actually embodied somewhere right now?
Well,
Grounded?
we are between campuses right now. We lost ours to fire on the Big Island about 3 years ago, and we closed on 10 acres in Fort Collins about a month ago. Wow. And we put up a 200-foot greenhouse. So that's our first step. And we're in escrow on 10 more acres adjoining it, and we're working down the road, working our plan, fundraising and planning, and working on the entitlements. And if all goes well, we'll close on the second 10 acres in July, and we'll be able to start construction in about a year or so. So, yeah.
Are you going to be involved with the building, Michael? You said you're a builder.
Well, it is kind of what I do. I'm a lifelong builder, and also we've used it as a Shama's father is too. He's been my business partner in building many times. We've also used it as a educational environment. I've had many young people learn how to build, young men and women, and learn basics of using tools, and it's a great life skill. So we'll do that again. We'll be able to build our own community, and I have quite a few young people who even went on to become contractors and got their license and all that. So, and I'm planning on them showing up to help, and we'll see.
How big is your group? How many people in the community are helping with the project?
Well, we've got, there's about maybe 8 of us who came from far away. Some of us are still on the Big Island. It's scattered. I mean, we scattered in every direction. It was really, really, we lost a lot, honestly. But we've already got a local mailing list of almost 50 people. So there's a lot of local interest. It's amazing the extent to which people get this idea of community. It's common sense, you know. Why drive everywhere? Why not have your friends live next door? You know, have a sacred space to share, have a dining hall you can socialize and share a meal, you know, grow food together. It's just so obvious a thing that needs to be done. And it is being done, of course, but this will be a little unique, you know. The value, this is the sort of new urbanism contribution to the whole thing. It's got to be on foot. Their big insight is the automobile has been what has destroyed human relations, is basically what they think. That when you are on foot, on land, and crossing paths with people, those chance interactions, which are completely removed when you are driving to everything you do, you cannot get that fabric of community. And so that's the new urbanism philosophy in a nutshell. You gotta be about walking, and there's a lot of truth to it. There's a lot of truth to it.
Can I ask why you chose Fort Collins?
That is a good question. It seemed totally random to us. We'd barely ever been in Fort Collins, but you know, the answer is basically followed the guidance and felt led here to a more ambitious project than we would have chosen for ourselves. The land we bought was an organic farm for 40 years, farmed by dear friends of ours. They were retiring from farming. The city of Fort Collins grew up around their property, and they said, "You got to come see our farm. You know, you should buy it," because they knew we were looking for a new campus. And I was sure it was going to be a farm out in the boonies somewhere where you just didn't get any entitlements. You couldn't build anything. We've been fighting City Hall our entire lives, you know, in California because of all the zoning restrictions. But we came and it checked all the boxes. The only one we wouldn't have checked was winter. We didn't really have winter in our plans, but so we're from Hawaii, but we're getting through the first one, so we'll see. We might be okay. But no, it's perfect. You can walk. I mean, downtown Fort Collins is 3 miles away, and we're on the west edge of town. You walk across the street and you're in the foothills of the Rockies. You know, there's bike trails everywhere. Big bikeable city. You can take a bike, you can walk. There's public transportation comes right down the street. It checks so many boxes. We had to give it a go. So
I'm curious about the business model you've adopted. And I heard you say the word charity. We're a charity too. The reason I'm asking is we're still trying to figure out exactly what we want the Valley of Light to be, whether it's a business trust or an LLC or a land trust or a charity. And it sounds like you've done this before. So I'm curious what model you feel is optimal for intentional community that will also preserve it as an intentional community, because, you know, the new eco village thing is just a neighborhood waiting to fall apart, in my opinion. But what model did you guys decide to use?
yes, no, that's a very, very good question. In some of the communities, many of the communities we've lived in, it is a struggle. How do you own housing? You know, how do you invest? How do you get your money out? When, you know, people grow, people change, people do different things. How do they leave? You don't want people stuck there, you know, so it's a tough nut to crack. And there's many different ways to crack it, but our approach is this. If you make it completely market forces, then as one of my mentors said, how do you keep it from becoming like every place else? You know, if you just leave it to, this is what we have, you know, this is what we're trying to get away from. So our model, oh, you're gonna have to go, Chum. Okay, in about 10 minutes. I do too. So we'll try to wrap up. Thank you. Real quickly, Polestar has been an educational nonprofit for 22 years. We're kind of a known entity to a good number of people, and many of them are interested in what we're doing. They know how we hold our inner processes, our spiritual path. They know that we're universally oriented and inclusive, and they're comfortable with it. And so we are going to occupy Polestar and its mission, the common areas of what will otherwise be an HOA, a more normal traditional HOA. So there'll be things in the governance model that can be handled by the HOA, but the mission of the nonprofit and the empowerment of the nonprofit to fulfill the mission in the common areas, which is your dining hall and classrooms and temple and hopefully a certain amount of housing that is affordable that the nonprofit can own. And then we basically leave everything else to market forces. And I'm
So people can buy their lot.
You leave it to market forces. Does that mean anybody can just come in and buy something? I mean, how do you?
It does, and that solves problems and creates others. And the problem it solves is that you can finance it. You can go to a bank. You can leave it to your kids. All these things that are important to people, it solves. And here is the theory. We'll see how well it works. Polestar and its values are not everybody's cup of tea. If you want to be at Polestar, you're going to pay the couple $100 a month in HOA fees, and you're going to be living in a place that has common areas that have a high standard. I mean, we're no drugs, no alcohol. We celebrate our kids and our elders, and we hold a respectful environment, albeit a playful environment, but a respectful environment. And if you can't hit that low bar of respect, you're not welcome in the common areas. So my belief is that it'll be somewhat self-selecting. And we have people from different paths in our group who have meditated and chanted with us for years. We'd love to be in community with them. They're wonderful. We're going to keep doing what we always do. And so that's the theory of how we get that
So,
balance. We keep the vision.
On the other side of that coin, then, what do you do, or do you even intend to do anything for people that are like-minded and a good fit in every way for your community, but they can't afford the real estate? What's up with them?
Well, that's where the affordable, or at the least attainable, housing comes in. And with the nonprofit in this case is the developer. And so the idea is to use the development process and the building process to leverage the nonprofit into a position of ownership of some amount of housing. And then over time, some people don't need to leave their house to their kids. Some people don't have kids. They can, over time, the goal is to get the nonprofit to own more housing for the sake of affordability. But no, that is the problem. And that is, near the top of my list is affordable, or at least attainable, housing. And
This sounds like a hybrid model. I'm not familiar with how you're doing it. So you think if you can exercise control over the common space, that will preserve the intention sufficiently that it will not turn into just a regular old HOA over time?
I really believe that. And I also think that we're just inclusive also. We don't mind anything that's not disrespectful. I mean, we love music, we love theater, we love dance, we're okay with a lot of things. We do want to support a meditative lifestyle. And so, but it's not like, we spend a lot of time with young people. You got to be a little over the edge to have fun with young kids, no drugs, no alcohol. So we're that is counterculture there.
So let me ask another question. Are the dues high enough that people wouldn't join otherwise? Like, for instance, are the dues covering the school, the elementary school in any way?
Yeah, well, I think the question would be, what would it matter if they didn't come to meditation or didn't come to, doesn't matter to me, you know? My job is going to be to work with those people. You vote with your feet, basically. If you're interested, you come, you know, and everybody changes over time, you know, and I've been in community my whole life, you know, so, you know, for 20 years, you might be the person who does all the community stuff, but then really your life is about something else now, whatever it is. That's got to be fine, or, you know, in this model, that is fine. And basically you set up the nonprofit in a way to just keep doing the mission and do it with those who are excited about it. You know, some people will be at meditation every day of the week. Others will see them at Christmas. It's fine by me. You know, I think you work with the energy that shows up. And
It's an interesting hybrid model. I hadn't heard of that. We're a charity too, so we were thinking of holding title in the name, like we're interested in getting the farm next door, which is why I'm asking these questions. There's an 88-acre farm that will be coming up for sale, and it's contiguous, and it would be like,
oh, awesome.
perfect. So I might ask you questions. I'm also the resident attorney for our community, which you maybe didn't realize. So
Wow,
I do all our
okay.
legal documents.
Okay, wow, good
That's
for
why I
you.
was curious how you're doing it.
And just so you know, the background at Polestar, we're basically an ashram. You know, the nonprofit owns everything. You can't invest. It's hard to get it going. And so this is like I always say, everybody lives in a neighborhood. You know, this is an intentional neighborhood. You want to learn to be good neighbors, and you share some of our values. Okay, Kashama, are we officially leaving you now? We lost her.
Signed
Okay,
off.
sorry
She's
about that.
great. She is so lovely. It was wonderful to have her.
Yeah, no, we needed her for this. I think she rounds out the picture in a way I really can't. She's right in the thick of educational work, you know, in more the societal way. So
back to the school, does the community support the school in any way, or just like the upkeep of the common areas?
it definitely supports the school, but that is still to be worked out. You know, right now, I'd love to get Shama to move there because then we really have somebody to head up the school. But as I'm sure you know, because you work with people, it's the human resources that are really the thing, you know, so that piece. And I'm not the formal school visionary. I will support and I will participate and but I'm more the school of life, all the other things that are part of life that are so ill attended really in our society, and in my opinion, you know. So she does a great work there. I'm so proud of her. It's quite amazing.
The model that we've been using as a template is the Federation of Damanhur in Italy. Are you familiar with Damanhur?
I am. I'm vaguely familiar. I know they're there, and I have friends who participate. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
They tithe heavily because they're supporting the school for the kids. They put money in for the elder care. And that's in addition to paying for the housing. So they really, but I mean, they've been up and going for a long time, and I think there's about 600 people there right now. But anyway, that's an interesting model too.
No, and I think, you know, everything evolves. At Ananda Village in the early years, there was monthly dues, of course, and a lot of it went into the garden. That was the value. But then kids started coming. So now there's a lot of kids. And I remember the village manager is a good friend of mine at the time. He consciously removed the resources from the garden and put them into the school, the village resources. And then 20 years later, there was another evolution where it's, hey, time for the parents to bear more of the burden, because there was a long period of time where there was no tuition. It was just completely supported by the community. And so if you were single, you were still paying the same amount as somebody who had 2 kids in the school, you know. So then, you know, so things evolve, and it's a moving target, but
Sounds like a pretty natural evolution.
it is. I mean, it just, you know, whatever presents itself, you try to work with it and find your way through. So
Fascinating.
I've really enjoyed meeting all of you. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing, and thanks for the invite, Michael and everyone. We should definitely keep in touch, and I will definitely put it on my list to come visit when I'm out that way. I don't have plans at the moment, but it'd be lovely to meet you guys.
We'd love to have you visit. That would be really, really nice. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you for inviting Shama. It was wonderful to hear about both of you and your experiences, and yeah, it's been impressed upon me that it's all about the right people, the mentors and the visionaries coming, and really that's what kind of pulls it together. That's what makes it happen. And yeah. Did you want to share anything else today?
No, I'm grateful for this conversation. I missed a little bit, so Michael will definitely inform me on what it was. But I'm grateful and hope to stay in touch with you, Michael. It seems like you have a lot to teach, and just the way that you're doing things and how you've been involved for so long, just your experience, your life experience is a teacher, I think, for communities that are developing and learning the ropes. So even though we all don't have all the answers, it's just helpful to hear different perspectives, and I appreciate yours. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I second all of that. And also, I was just wondering, I mean, it's been so wonderful to hear, you know, what I've heard tonight. And I'm wondering if you are somehow like having prototype information available so that people who have a similar desire can just like be able to more clearly see the design ideas that you're working with and how you're implementing them as food for thought for establishing other communities, maybe not exactly the same, but you know, you've done a lot of groundwork already, right? And there's certain things that just sound so naturally viable. The word
You can look at polestargardens.org or Polestar. I can write these in there if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And let's see, everyone. And then I'll give you Shama's and actually, I don't know the website, but there's one. Oh, I meant to put more in there. Polestar Village. PolestarVillage.com is our other website. And then you can just Google EFL or Education for Life, and that organization will come up that Kashama is working on right now. How do I send it? There we go.
And livingwisdom.org is her school.
There you go. Thank you. That's even better. Yeah.
What was it?
Living Wisdom is the name of her school. It's connected. Same organization as Education for Life.
Living Wisdom.
Livingwisdom.org. Yeah.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm going to sign off, and thank you guys again. Really a delight to meet all of you, and keep up the good work. I'm very impressed with your organization and the work you guys are doing. Yeah, may COVID end quickly and we all get back. So Yeah,
Thank you so much for your encouragement. Yes. And yeah, I guess we'll wrap up with our closing mantra here.
Oh, yay.
That's on our program, and you can join in or listen if you like. We thank you for this life. We thank you for this night. And we pledge to be pure instruments of peace. May the entire universe be filled with truth, love, and light. Om Jai.
Om Jai. Thank you. Good night, everybody.